Right. I've got a film here. It's been around since I was a very young child. I think 5 or 6. It was 5 or 6 when it was first released, and I think there's I think the issue with whether it's suitable for if its suitability for children has always been contentious, really. Um, this I can't remember where. I think I got this copy from a charity shop, but it isn't the actual British DVD because it hasn't got a BBFC certificate on the back of it. This special 25th anniversary collector's edition is digitally mastered and contains exclusive footage, interviews, and behind-the-scenes material. Steven Spielberg directed this classic film that became one of the most enduring action suspense films of all time. Jaws was an instant blockbuster phenomenon, and today it is still among the highest-grossing films in motion picture history, acclaimed by critics and audiences alike. Rediscovered the timeless film that continues to make entire generations afraid to go in the water. Well, I think it potentially could make you frightened to go into the water. Just as there was another film that was released in the early 1960s called Psycho, and that was supposed to make you afraid of taking a shower because you might get stabbed to death. But this is not actually a review of this film. It's a discussion on whether it's not, on whether it is or it is not a film for Christians. And I think in this case, as in all the other films in this series of discussions, there's valid arguments either way. It may be or it may not. It isn't that clear cut. I've just listened to a podcast of it on the BBFC website. BBFC stands for British Board of Film Censors, by the way, or British Board of Film Classification, as you're known today. And I've listened to a pod. There's a podcast available on their website, and it tells you all about the history of it. And James Furman, who was the secretary of it was passed with an A certificate by the secretary of the British Board of Film Censors, Stephen Murphy, but just before he left. But then they got another person employed as their secretary, James Furman, and he was concerned about this film's suitability for children, and he watched it, and he felt that it could be released with an A certificate, which is the old equivalent of a PG rating. I mean, anyone could go to see the film, but parents were cautioned as to its content, and it's never been considered. Unlike the other film of I did a discussion on, some Bugsy Malone, it's never been considered for a U certificate ever, because they can't give a film like this a U certificate. And it was released in 1975, and I think you could argue at that particular time, film censorship was becoming more liberal anyway. I think perhaps I think in previous decades, it's probably doubtful that children would have been able to see this film, because there's another film that's similar to it. It features people being attacked by dinosaurs. It's called Jurassic Park, and I read an article by the Daily Mail, by the Daily Mail the film critic Christopher Tukey. It was appalled by the by the film Showgirls. It was a soft porn movie, and he was a porn bite. He wrote this article on it, and it was an article all about the history of the censorship and the X rating. And he said that a film such as Jurassic Park, in his opinion, would have been a no-go area for children in the 50s and 60s. And I think you could say the same thing about Jaws, that in the 50s and 60s, they wouldn't have considered anything other than an X rating for the film Jaws. Perhaps even with bits cut out. But it's I think one issue that some people have with it that you could, I think, because it's a film about a shark attacking people, it belongs in the horror genre, and a lot of people do feel that horror films are not suitable for viewing by Christians. There's a film that I've got in my collection. It's called Anaconda, and that's got a 15 certificate, meaning it can't be supplied to persons under the age of 15, and that's about people being attacked by, I think it's venomous snakes, I think, and that's generally considered to be a horror film. And there's another film that I've seen, a film made of a Stephen King novel called Cujo. That's about a rabid dog that attacks people, and that's been it was, when I watched it was classified 18, meaning it couldn't be supplied to persons under persons under the age of 18. But I will say, as horror movies go, these two films are comparatively mild. They aren't they aren't particularly nasty or gory films. They're not unwatchable, in my opinion. I mean, I listened to a radio program about the film. About the Exorcist. That's generally considered to be a horror film. Apparently, apparently somebody who watched it didn't feel that it was. They didn't feel that it belonged in the horror genre. They just felt it was a film about a girl being possessed by a demon. They didn't think it belonged in the horror genre, but it's generally believed that it does. This film is generally considered to be an action adventure film, and my parents didn't take me to see it when it was in the cinema when it was first released, because they weren't sure whether they were allowed to or not, and B, they weren't sure it was particularly suitable for a child of my age at the time, being I was only 5 or 6. But ironically, there's another film. There's another film I can actually remember them watching them with it vaguely on television, and there was only, say, 5, 6. I wasn't very old. Perhaps 5, 6, 7, maybe, and it was called Frankenstein: The True Story, and there was a few frightening, gory moments in it. There was a man on the operating table having his arm amputated with no anaesthetic. There was a woman getting and there was a woman getting her head pulled off in it. And I think the British Board of Film Censors have given that film a 12 rating. I mean, it isn't suitable for anybody under 12, but the question we're asking here is Jaws a suitable film for Christians or not? Well, it's like the answer would be the same. Would be the same as the other film that I did a discussion on, Bugsy Malone. It may be or it may not. It's not one of the more violent films that you can watch. There are a few gory moments in it, but it's not. It's the language is, but the language isn't too good. But apart from that, it isn't particularly objectionable. The British Board of Film Censors have recently re-rated it to a 12A. That's the most recent certificate that they're giving it in the cinema is a 12A. But children under 12 need to be accompanied to see it in the cinema. But it's quite a good film. It's not really a bad film in my opinion. As far as the violence in it. As far as the violence in it goes, the violence is nowhere near the worst of what you see in films these days, and it's got a happy ending to it as well because the offending shot gets killed gets blown to smithereens at the end of it, and so the danger is eradicated. But there's a few more films I want to do discussions. My parents did actually take me to see this film when I got a bit old. After I first went up to high school, we went to see a double bill of it, the Jaws and Jaws 2 together, and they are both quite good. But they're both very well made. Well, but I did find them scary. But it's nowhere near as objectionable as what a lot of films are nowadays. Anyway, there's a few more films I want to do discussions of in this series. Bye.